everyone to the November 16th meeting of the Parks Recreation Greenway Advisory Board. And happy early Thanksgiving. So I think the first thing on our agenda is well, it's actually public comment. So if we have any public comment, then come to the podium and you have 3 minutes. If not, then the next thing on our agenda will be the Raleigh Youth Council. And we have the Evans sisters. Welcome.
So hello, my name is London Evans, and I'm chair of the Raleigh Youth Council. So for our past community service event, we had our specialized recreation Halloween dance at JC Park, which was a success. We had about 60 total volunteers and 75 participants.
Wow.
At our past meeting, this year's executive board has decided to be more intentional about providing resources to our peers. So for our mental health and wellness meeting, we had a representative from National Alliance on Mental Illness, Wake County, join us via Zoom to discuss resources, and we also made DIY stress balls and discussed healthy ways to respond to stressful situations.
Hi, my name is Paris Evans, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Raleigh Youth Council. So we are still continuing our toy drive in which we are collecting new toys for kids ages birth to 12 years to support our upcoming event. Donations can be made at any of the following sites: at Roberts Park Community Center, Abbott's Creek Community Center, and Kiwanis Neighborhood Center. The deadline to drop off toys is Wednesday, December 6th. For this Saturday, we will help distribute coats at Courtney T. Johnson's Coats Cause We Care event. On November 29th, we will meet with the Dix Park management team to share our ideas for future youth and teen programs at Dix Park. On December 2nd, we will host our annual Santa's Workshop event at Abbott's Creek Community Center, where we will decorate, facilitate games and crafts, and participants will get to meet Santa. On December 9th, we will host our annual Toys from Teens event at Roberts Park Community Center. This event runs very similar to Santa's Workshop with the addition of the toy giveaways. Families with children aged birth to 12 years old are invited to join us for both of these events. Thank you, and happy Thanksgiving from the Raleigh Youth Council.
Thank you all so much. And so we will send a reminder to our board to get if anybody is planning to participate in that by Wednesday, December 6th. And we thank you. That is a great turnout for your special needs dance in October. That's 75 volunteers and 62 participants, or did I get the
60 total volunteers and 75 participants.
Okay, I reversed it, but both of those categories are just awesome. So thank you all. Now, when you meet with Dix Park, will it be just you two, or will there be the executive board, or?
It will be 4 participants of the executive board.
Okay, great. Well, that's super. All right. Anybody have any other questions or comments for our Raleigh Youth Council? Thank you all for what you do.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you very much.
And then next thing on our agenda is the Play It Forward financial assistance program. And
it's not me, but I get to introduce Debbie. Good evening, Madam Chair and the Parks Board. I appreciate you having us here tonight. I'm excited to introduce Debbie Houston. She's been with the department for about 7 years. She does our financial assistance program. She brings in lots of donations. She does our work study program and anything else where she can help the community out. And I even have Stephen saying this, so I'm going to go with it. I got a Debbie, and everybody wants a Debbie. So I'm going to let Debbie come up and introduce herself and let you know what she does for the department. Thank you.
Hi. So I have to decide between being able to see my notes or being able to see you. I'm going to go with the notes. I'm at that age now. So I'd like to begin by thanking you all for having me come and present tonight. So this is the mission of Parks and Recreation, that we're connecting and enriching our community through exceptional experiences. We go on to our vision, which is that we're going to bring parks to people to parks and parks to people. And I get to do this every single day. The financial assistance program reduces barriers so that individuals and families, regardless of their finances, can participate in our programs and play for a lifetime. And tonight, I'm going to present on the background of the fund, highlights from the past year, and upcoming events. So as you've probably learned, as you've been meeting with our different program areas, we have a very passionate and enthusiastic staff. And in fact, in 1993, which I think is just 5 years ago, but it turns out it was 30 years ago, the staff held their very first auction to help families needing assistance with summer camps. They based this on referrals and patrons asking for assistance. They chugged along until 2015, and in 2015, they created a full-time position, and they also created an application in a formalized process. In 2017, I started. At that time, the program had 357 individuals receiving assistance, which was kind of amazing because Helene had given me to do a SWOT analysis, and the next closest site I could find was Seattle that had 189 participants. So we were almost double the number of their participants. And when I got the job, Helene said she wanted 3 things. She wanted an accessible application, she wanted an equitable process, and she wanted me to reach the community and make sure that people who needed the assistance were the ones getting it. So the first thing I did was, I was like, Helene, the application is 6 pages long. Let's shorten it. So I shortened it to 3 pages. The next thing I did is, one of the requirements was taxes and pay stubs. And I was like, what if you don't do your taxes? What if you don't have to submit taxes? You don't make enough to do taxes. So we changed the qualifications that if you could send in a verification and non-filing from the IRS, that would work. That's all you had to do. And then lastly, I got the application up on the website. That was key. We needed to have it up about the program, about donations, and about the application process. And then 2 weeks after I started, Walnut Creek had their very first mud day, and I was like, can I do a table? I want to be there, I want to meet with the community, and I want to get out there. And so I started doing programs. In 2018, after meeting with many of our community members, I found out that the application was still too long. There are people that might be functionally illiterate. They couldn't read the application. Some people were like, I don't have all the paperwork that you require. I don't know what to do. So I actually met with Wake County Human Services. They had a program at the time called Middle Class Express. It is now Mindset. But I did a focus group with them. And I was like, this is the current 3-page application. What can we do to make this better? And so we sat down as a group and we looked at it, and you guys actually have in your packet the 1-page application that we now have. One side's English, the other side's Spanish. I also learned through Wake County Human Services, the Department of Health and Human Services, the Housing Authority, the requirements to get their programs. Why was I recreating the wheel for these participants? Why was I making the patrons do more? If they've already been approved for these organizations, why did I need to do it? And so instead, they can actually send in proof of public assistance. So much easier. I also, let's see. Okay, so then in 2019, I applied for and received a grant from, it's the John Rex Kaleidoscope Project. And the thought was I was going to take children residing at the Raleigh Rescue Mission, ages 4 to 6, and do a full-day summer camp. There are no summer camps that are full-day for that age group in Southeast Raleigh. So super excited. I got some incredible staff with me. Raleigh Rescue Mission was on board. I was ready to go. And then I also did my first fundraising event, which was Dodge for a Cause. It was a glow-in-the-dark dodgeball tournament held on February 28th, 2020. And things were amazing. And 2 weeks later, the world shut down. But fortunately for me, we are resilient with Parks and Recreation. We keep on moving even when the world stops. And so we actually had the Rec 2020 program so that children who needed a virtual space so their parents could continue to work, we offered the Rec 2020 program. And not only did we offer a safe place for them to be, but we offered discounted services to families that needed it. And then through Wake County Human Services, their CARES Act funding, I was actually able to get 86 families free programs. So I submitted vouchers. I literally spent Thanksgiving that year, the entire day of Thanksgiving, submitting vouchers and sending them over to Wake County Human Services so that these people could get paid back and not have to pay for this program. In 2020, I was able to do my Camp Kaleidoscope program, which was amazing. It was life-changing. These children had literally been in a 10-by-10 room at the shelter for a year. They hadn't been outdoors. They hadn't socialized. And here they are, 4 to 6 years old. Like, this is huge. We went outside, and we played on the Greenway, and we did everything. There was one little guy the first day barely could speak. By the last day, and this is my favorite story about him, there's a picture of a cardinal on the trailhead when you're at Walnut Creek, and he would go, chicken, chicken, and I was like, oh my God, that's right, it's a chicken. And I wasn't gonna correct him, he was too cute. The other great thing is we did a survey of the kids of like, what was your favorite thing? And his favorite thing was turtle. If you guys have been out to Walnut Creek, you know that they have a turtle out there, a box turtle out there, very exciting. Well, later on, a couple of weeks later, I was on a Teams call with staff from the Raleigh Rescue Mission, and he happened to walk by and he went, oh, turtle! It turns out I was turtle. I was his favorite thing at the park, which was really kind of incredible. I also that year started doing programs specifically for our financial assistance families. So I worked with an intern from Durant, and we did some climate change programs and art classes. Same with Biltmore and the same with Walnut Creek. And then, let's see, in turn, from these families attending our programs, they're giving us valuable feedback. So they don't have to pay for the program, but they're like, this is what I would pay. These are the times I would enjoy doing it. This is what I think you could do better or what you might want to do differently. And so it's kind of this win-win. They're giving me and us information, but they're getting the chance to participate in these programs. And so now it's 2023. This year I had 1,280 individuals receive financial assistance. I have attended over 500 community events since I started. I now have a permanent part-time 20-hour-a-week position. I have an intern, and we're just getting started. So just a little quick update on what financial assistance actually means. There's a fee reduction program where families receive either 25 or 50% off the cost of the program. They pay their portion, I pay the other portion. 25% assistance is based on HUD guidelines. So if somebody's receiving 25% assistance, it means that they're in the low income limit category. For 50% assistance, it means they're very low. And then I can often reach out to Stephen and say, hey, there's a family that's extremely low income, and we can actually give them more assistance. The other thing we do is payment plans. So for a lot of families, they don't qualify for financial assistance, but we can still do payment plans, and a lot of them take us up on this. These are basically no-interest loans, and they can sign up, and we help them so that it's not exorbitantly cost at one time. And last is our Give Play camps, where we work with the City of Oaks Foundation, and we get kids into nature and outdoor theme camps. This year, we're actually going to be trying to do some STEM camps as well. We've heard the community. We know like DigiConnectors is a huge one that's only in North Raleigh right now. This year, I'm actually going to be able to apply assistance to some of those programs. So I'm very excited. And we're also going to be offering it in Southeast Raleigh over at Worthdale Community Center.
That was a specific question and request, I think, by Gregory Etheridge of our board when the camps were presented. And so that's really, he's not here tonight, but it's really good to hear that is being addressed.
Yes, we're definitely going to do that. I mean, that's not just a summer camp. That's a potential for workforce development. This is a skill that will last with them for an entire lifetime if we do it right. So, my people, as I said, I had 1,280 individuals that were awarded $120,000 in financial assistance this past year. 83% of my families are at 130% or below the federal poverty level. So what does that mean? That means that an average mom and 2 kids, which are generally who my financial assistance families are, she's making $35,000 or less a year. According to Rent Cafe, 76% of two-bedroom, two-bathroom rentals in Wake County cost $1,700 or more a month, and only 3%, only 3% of those rentals are at $1,000 or less. And so there's a map that you guys might see. What this means is gentrification is happening, and families are coming to our programs, not just from Raleigh or Wake County.
Not the big one, not the big ones, the ones within the packet.
Yeah, it's very small, which is why. They're coming to me from Lewisburg, they're coming from Franklinton, they're coming from Anger, they're coming from Clayton, because they live outside of Wake County, work inside, and they need quality care. So I work with a lot of partners to make this happen. The biggest one is, of course, the City of Raleigh, but it's not just Raleigh Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources employees. It's the Office of Housing and Neighborhoods. It's community engagement, diversity, equity, and inclusion, the Office of Sustainability, Office of Human Resources, the Office of Transportation, and Go Raleigh, and the Raleigh Police Department. Other programs that I work very closely with, Wake County, the McKinney-Vento Liaison, and social workers within the school system. This year we have over 20 children experiencing homelessness that are attending our before and after school care, and their contacts were through Wake County Public Schools. And if it weren't for these groups, I wouldn't be able to reach out to our community. So some highlights. The first was in December. We did a wrestling event for a fundraising event, but it wasn't just a fundraising event for my program. It actually was a windfall for the city. We had people come out from 6 different counties, from as far away as Windsor, North Carolina, Winston-Salem, and Fayetteville. Some of them spent the night here in Raleigh. They all wanted recommendations for dinner. We're planning, and the bigger thing from that is I found out that Ricky from Ralph Campbell, who was offering this program, was borrowing wrestling mats from a local college. Well, I found out about, local high school, excuse me. I found out about that, and when we applied for the Champro grant, which means that we were awarded the grant, and we can now buy our own wrestling mats. So Ralph Campbell has his own wrestling mats now, so we can continue making this program bigger and better. We also started our first Throw It Forward Raleigh disc golf tournament. We had a mommy and son over the moon dance, and since that point, we've done 2 more dances, and we're continuing dances into 2024. I had a work-study student who was on the NC State Quidditch team, which I didn't know was actually a thing, but it was, and we did the NC State versus UNC Quidditch match, and we also did a program for kids, which was a huge success. With Tierney Sneeringer, our Director of Cultural Outreach, and Lauren Cabrick with Planning, we applied for and received a grant called the Welcome to Raleigh Parks Grant through the Trust for Public Land. During this time, over 3 months, we offered participants the opportunity to learn about our programs and build social contact. And we still have a little bit of funding, so we're going to continue this program into the spring, just condensed down a little bit. I got to take kids to a soccer game. For some of these kids, it was the first time riding a bus, the first time going to a live event, and they had a blast. And then finally, I did a costume swap this year where people could donate their Halloween costumes and come out and get new costumes. And we had over 36 people come out and get costumes this year. So our hope is to continue it next year and do more locations. Some horizon items. As I mentioned, partnerships. So I'm working with the Raleigh Police Department. I'm getting my kids, as well as others, into their basketball camps and their baseball programs. I was also a referral source for their Shop with a Cop and for their Giving Tree program, and I'm doing that again this year. Our aquatics program, we offered free swim lessons this past month. It was for age 4 to 56 for the age of the participants, and we had over 68 people learn how to swim. It's a free program, and 2 of our teen participants have found their passion and their love and actually joined our swim team, and I was able to offer them financial assistance for that. And one of the kids not only has he found his love and his passion, he wants to come work for us and be a lifeguard. And he has found in Tyler, who is over at Buffalo Road, a mentor and a person that looks like him. And he wants to be Tyler, and it is incredible to see this happening. I'm also working with Digital Connectors, which is Yanira Campos, and we're going to do a program this spring at Marsh Creek, which is Learn and Earn. And basically, we're going to teach computer skills They'll start off as a pilot for My Family's Receiving Financial Assistance, and if they attend all 8 programs, they're going to get a free laptop from the Camden Institute, which will be life-changing for them as well. And then we're going to be looking at the impacts of the fee study on financial assistance. Like, where do we go from here? As I said, I actually have a work-study student. She was supposed to be with me all year. The overachiever is graduating in December. But I do have an intern who is going to eventually take over the world. He is at Southeast Raleigh High School. He's an incredible kid. So he is with me through the year, and then I'm also going to be applying for some grants. So at this point, you're like, Debbie, this is amazing. How are you doing all this? Well, great question. For financial assistance, we get a percentage of our fees through our athletics program. So they give us 10%. I also ask for donations. And lots of times people think that donations have to be huge. But you know what $12.50 can do? It can get somebody into our Raleigh Rockets program, and they can learn about track. And all it takes is a pair of shoes, and this is a skill they'll have for the rest of their life. For $25, you can get somebody a life-saving swim lessons. There's a lot of water around here. This is a real need. And then for $50, you can send somebody to camp. You can also attend some of my fundraising events, such as Dodge for a Cause. And so, Helene, you ready?
Dodge for a what?
My first event, I will be out every night at Holiday Express.
I got the bucket. I'm ready to collect.
Suggested donation of $5. All proceeds, every penny, goes back to the financial assistance program. So if you're out at Holiday Express and you see me,
Where will you be in the park?
they haven't decided. I'm going to find out on Tuesday, the 27th, to find out. But you'll be able to see me because I'll be like glowing like a light.
I have a feeling you'll have them from your ears as opposed
Yeah,
to
I
this.
will. Yes. Other upcoming events, and I want you all to consider yourself cordially invited. Throw it forward. Disc golf tournament. We're coming back better than ever, March 8th. Halifax Community Center on April 6th. We're going to do quad ball for kids. And you guys all have a flyer as well. April 20th, we're doing Positively Imperfect Pet Portraits and Pop-Up Pet Market. Our staff will be drawing your pet on quality paper. Some of us have talent. I will leave it at that. On May the 4th, May the 4th be with you, Galactic Glow-in-the-Dark Dodgeball Tournament. My intern, who I told you is already going to take over the world, already has reenactors. I believe Darth Vader and a couple of stormtroopers will be out. There will be food trucks. There'll be lightsabers. It'll be amazing. June 15th at 5 Points, we're doing a 21 and up Welcome to Raleighwood Adult Prom. Andrea is actually already, and Giovanna are already trying to get on the homecoming team and want to be our queen for that. There will be a crown, there will be a scepter, so that is an opportunity.
We'll pay just to see
I have all
Giovanna.
of my Parks Board members. They're on my team. Voting, yes.
The week of July 1st through the 3rd, I'm going to do a Camp Carefree for adults. We're going to turn your staycation into playcation and come on out to Raleigh Parks and Rec, and we'll have 3 days that you can have fun with. And then lastly, Carolina Pines has been doing this for 2 years, and they have continued to do an amazing job. It's called the Haunted at the Pines. These young adults right here are staff's children and just kids from the community, and they put on one heck of a haunted house. These kids do an incredible job. And the thing that really touches my heart is we did it the last Saturday of the month. It was 11 o'clock. We were still cleaning up. We were exhausted. And the kids kept going, Miss Debbie, how much money did you raise? How many kids are going to get to go swimming? And that is now they become their why. Like they're like, let's do it. And we're going to make it bigger and better. And next year we're going to get like 80 kids swimming. And I just love their enthusiasm and their passion and just really appreciate them. So these are some of the quotes. My favorite quote is actually the last quote. 5 years ago, one of my financial assistance families reached out to me. She just moved to Raleigh. She had no idea about our school system. She had a little girl that she needed to get into the school, didn't know what to do. I met with her, I talked with her, I went over the calendar with her, and she has become one of my biggest advocates. She attends as many programs as she possibly can and afford to do. She tells others about the program. She participated in our Welcome to Raleigh Parks program, and I am so proud of her. She is now on the Kyle Drive Park Community Advisory Group. So she is making a difference, and I am so incredibly proud of her.
Wow.
So in conclusion, I would just like to say thank you all for allowing me to come out and present to you tonight. Giovanna, if you could go ahead and pass around that collection plate, that would be great. And yeah, I will take checks, credit cards, cash, you name it.
I don't have
And if you have any questions for me, you can either email me or I can address them right now. I was just kidding.
We're all in.
We're in.
We're in, Debbie. We're in.
I'm glad we're on the end.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, do you guys have any questions for me?
I'm sure some folks do. Does anybody have a question? Or if they dried the tears from their eyes? I mean, honestly, I remember when you presented, it was probably 3 or 4 years ago, and I was blown away then, and you have taken it to a whole nother level, and COVID has been in between. And I do recall that there was a part of the funding that you got was from the machines in community centers. Do you still get funding there?
So we get, oh, thank you guys. We do get a little bit through the Coca-Cola, but the other organization, which was A1 Vending, unfortunately, the owner of that passed away, and we did not continue that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we don't have snack vending, but we do partially for the soda machines, yes.
Okay. All right. Other questions?
Yeah, I had a couple. First of all, Debbie, amazing job. It looks like you've grown this program tremendously. The first question I had is there, you mentioned on the one slide that we fund 50% of programs and we don't fund anything completely. Is there a reason why we don't do that besides cost?
So cost is the big one, but there's also, so this is a funny thing. A lot of my families, they don't want it for free. They feel like it's lesser value if it's free. Right now, we actually have a reduced site camp. So Halifax, Worthdale, Roberts Park, Biltmore Hills, Tarboro Road are all reduced site camps. And I'm like, guys, they're the same camps as Chavis, only they're already reduced, and you can get another additional assistance on them. And convincing them that it's not a lesser program is a big thing, and I think that's part of that. Also, we don't have the funding to do the free program. And then there's also this, if you're not vested in it, you're not going to come. And so that also isn't, I've done some of the free programs, and I'll have like 50 people signed up, and then like 3 people show up, and it's like, I get it. Like, I do it myself. Like, I know what my limit is that I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm just not feeling it. I'm not going to go. And so, yeah, we're at 50% and 25. Although I will say Stephen has been very generous. I do have some families experiencing homelessness who have gotten 100% assistance. I've had some families who are like, I can't afford 50%. And we were like, okay, can you do 75%? And they're like, yes, because they want to pay. They don't want anything for free. They're very proud. And so we just have to make it affordable for them.
Thank you. That makes sense. The other question I had is, you mentioned that you got a grant from the Rex Endowment, and so I assume that was just a grant that they gave us. But has there been any thought to us trying to establish an endowment? Obviously, that would take a lot of funding, and it might be a long-term thing. But
Yeah, it's a great question. I would just say philosophically, the city doesn't put away money and not spend it. If you budget it, you spend it. We do have the ability through what's called our Fund 130. If we don't spend something, we roll it to the following year. This is where we would look to the City of Oaks to say their Give Play program that they are trying to set up the endowment, if you would, that annually we consistently get, $10,000 to $20,000 from them. So.
Yeah, and I don't know how Stephen feels about this, but I would love for it to be the SAS.
To the mic.
Oh, sorry, the SAS Biogen Google John Deere Tractor Target Financial Assistance Fund. So if you know of anybody that would like to sponsor, please.
Explain that a little bit more.
So I think what Debbie's saying is, and this is part of us hiring the superlative group, if they can package a summer camp and other different services, it can be brought to you by. So the summer youth Conservation Corps, brought to you by REI, or the Healthy Meals Program, brought to you by Kroger, well, not Kroger, Harris Teeter, something like that. So we will, and we'll share those different things with this board. And if they get to a certain level, then the council has to say, that's a lot of money. Are we okay with putting that amount of money in that name of that corporate sponsor to a program like this?
This may be for Stephen. I know that each of the districts have been asked to look at ways to spend $200,000 per district. Is this kind of program something we could allocate a bit of that for? Certainly the numbers and the dollars would be well placed.
Yeah, it's a great question, Bob. This program, the public budgeting exercise, is one-time money. So we're not looking at reoccurring programs and services. It is like a tactical sidewalk or sign. Greenway connectivity is one of the options. So answer your question, no, because it's like a reoccurring item. I would say like an operating budget versus a capital expenditure. So people can write in things, though.
Any other questions from board members? Well, and I think that when you sign up on RecLink, there's also a link there to donate.
That
Do you
is
get a fair number of donations that way?
So before I had that on RecLink, I was averaging about $500 a year through the donation. Last year, I had almost $10,000 just through the
Obviously, it's working.
Yeah, so it's working. And Helene actually asked me to remind you guys that for financial assistance, I never turn anyone away. So even if I can't get them assistance, I can do payment plans, I can do other things, but we're never going to turn anybody away from wanting to participate in our programs.
It really, I mean, the amount of, the way you have grown the program is fabulous, and it's a real credit to you and a credit to the city and all the people around. So thank you for the effort that you put into it. It is pretty fabulous.
I mean, I like to call myself the Oprah Winfrey of Parks and Recs.
What a fun thing to be.
Exactly. Thank you all again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. I remembered Debbie well from 3 or 4 years ago and the energy she brought then. The next thing is the Recreation Division, an overview of health and wellness programs in what we do.
Well, you got an Ainsley, and now you got a Debbie, and now you get an Ainsley, but I messed that one up right out of the gate. A little bit of the same, about the same time, 2018. Ainsley started with us, and actually, Beverly, this comes when I probably first met you. So several years ago, I got involved in a program called Adverse Childhood Experiences, also known as ACEs. And we learned a lot through this process, and it was really learning how the science connected to our profession and how just overall health and wellness and quality of life can impact a young person as they grow from child to adult, and how they hold on to things that have been trauma or abusive over the years. I got pretty deep connected with it. I met Beverly when she was with the school board at that time. And I convinced our director, Diane, at the time that we needed to step into this world in a different way. So we've always been active in health and wellness. We do lots of things that make people healthy, but we were learning about this mental and really, I say, a social health that was happening at the same time. So I was able to convince her that we needed a health and wellness program director. And lo and behold, I got her to agree to it. But it was a three-legged stool, and the person that's going to talk about it is going to give you some information. And it was dealing with our health and wellness stuff, like our typical fitness programs, our fitness rooms, those type of things. We've got our built environment, so how do we start to activate things like our Greenway trails and working with our community to do things. But more importantly, is what we were working was this wrestle that I was having was, what's the role of Parks and Recreation and Social Services? How do we make sure people are healthy in mind, body, and spirit as well? And so we posted a job. And this guy applied, and I will just have a little fun with him because he's one of the favorite people that I've been able to work with. He comes in with a banana and an apple to the interview. It's the first time I ever got to experience them. Then he'd be able to use these props as part of the process to explain the interview process. So I will not give it away, and he probably doesn't even have it in his agenda, so you don't have to talk about the banana and the apple. But Ainsley Worrell came to us with the same passion that Debbie just talked about in there, and he has been really committed to what we do from a health and wellness perspective. He's a whopping division of 2. Samantha Williams is his assistant. Unfortunately, she couldn't join us tonight, but I'm going to let him talk to you about some of the cool things he's doing to work within our community. So I'll introduce you, Ainsley Worrell.
Good evening. Good evening, members of the board, Stephen, fellow colleagues. My name is Ainsley Worrell. I'm the Health and Wellness Program Director. I get the privilege of working with colleagues in our Parks and Recreation and Cultural Resources Division. I'm incredibly grateful to be here tonight, just to spend a few minutes providing an overview of the Health and Wellness Program area, to talk a little bit about our efforts since our inception in 2018, to share a little bit about how we've evolved, and then also from my comments, hopefully you'll get an idea of where we're headed. Okay, so I'm going to spend my time this evening, or the next several minutes, providing an overview of the program areas I stated. I'm going to share a few points on our health and wellness work and how it has developed. I'll also briefly highlight how we're intentionally expanding our work towards advancing community health through the Community Wellness Hub. It's a concept by NRPA, and I'll highlight the 7 dimensions of well-being framework in that. And then lastly, I'll wrap up my comments by underlining a few of the opportunities that are that we hope to embark on in the next few years as well. How it began. Okay. So the birth of the Health and Wellness Program area began in the fall of 2018, simultaneously with me coming on board as a program director. This program was a result of PRCR leadership team's vision to create a program that would work together with staff and community advocates to promote affordable and healthy lifestyle opportunities for residents in Raleigh. The PRCR leadership team was confident that the department had the potential to effectively promote health by serving and providing resources to promote healthy lifestyle programs and offering nurturing, safe, and supportive experiences to reduce the impact of adverse childhood experiences, as Ken had stated. The program area was fashioned with the intention of making PRCR health promotion as possible, and with a heavy focus on working collaboratively with local agencies to endorse a community-focused strategy. The program area began with 3 focus areas, and I'm going to highlight those really quickly for you. The first, as Ken stated, was providing program support to our community center staff through program outreach to the public, through supporting our 16 community center fitness rooms around Raleigh, in addition to providing guidance and essentially consultative services with the acquisition of health and wellness staff. The second was to essentially maintain partnerships, existing partnerships that was already in place. So for example, we work very closely with WakeMed Pediatric Services to support one of their chronic disease programs, a diabetes prevention program for families. And then the third is associated with the adverse childhood experiences work that was already occurring in the county. And so Parks and Rec had an opportunity to play a significant role in the education and awareness, building that awareness of the impacts of adverse childhood experiences. So fast forward to our current time. I want you to take a little bit of a few seconds and think about the impacts of COVID. So according to the World Health Organization, approximately 6.8 million people died of COVID-19. And as of July 2023, Wake County experienced 394,000 cases and then upwards of 1,400 deaths during that time. So as the numbers state, COVID had a significant impact on individuals, communities, and organizations. But there were a lot of lessons that we learned during that time. We learned that vulnerable communities require access to essential resources and information to reduce their susceptibility to worse health outcomes. But most importantly, we learned that developing partnerships across diverse disciplines and among healthcare providers and community leaders were incredibly important to fill the gaps, to improve food access, encourage healthy lifestyle, but to protect health and well-being for families that we serve. So in 2018, it was just me doing a lot of the work. My supervisor, Billy Alba, who's here, often said, it seems like you were campaigning because I spent a lot of time out and about. I share that with you because I do think that came into play significantly, that work during the time of COVID. We were able to pull together as a community and mobilize to provide resources. As you can see here on the screen, we are now up to 2 full-time staff members. In addition, an instructor that goes out and provide programming throughout for our community members. And the work continues. There's a lot other work that we're doing as well that I'll share. So as I stated earlier, the work continues. We still have the essentially focus on the 3 key points that I stated earlier. However, we have really began putting towards a lot more effort towards expanding those areas. So every day, our team, our Parks and Rec staff work together with stakeholders in the community to make spaces where citizens live, learn, play, become happier. These professionals serve as stewards of NRPA's community wellness hubs, and I'll share a graphic with you shortly that'll talk a little bit about that framework. So community wellness hubs are considered trusted places that connect members of the community to essential program services and spaces that help with not only health equity, but improve health outcomes overall. So as you can see here, this infographics talk a little bit about community wellness hubs, and the crux of the community wellness hub concept is a focus on a holistic wellness model, which for NRPA, this is the 7 dimensions of wellness. If you've probably come across the dimensions of wellness before, you may have seen 12 or 8. This framework was actually derived from several national evidence-based frameworks that are out there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about just a couple of the dimensions, but if you could take a few seconds and look at the others, you can know that with the definitions, the programs and services that our Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources already sort of do for the community are easily connected to any of those dimensions. So over the course of the last 3 years, we've spent a significant amount of time doing work specifically around advancing social and emotional well-being and also physical well-being. So what you see on the slide here are just a few examples of partnerships that we have forged to sort of help support families through processing and growing and thriving from the impacts of COVID. One is we partnered with Alliance Health to provide mental health first aid training to our staff and now also to the public. Second, we've also connected quite well with the Wake County Overdose Prevention and Substance Use Coalition and North Carolina Harm Reduction to provide education and awareness training about substance use and overdose.
Can I interrupt with a question?
Sure.
Do we have Narcan at all of our community centers?
Not at this time, we do not.
Because, I mean, I was in Walgreens or something the other day, and I saw that it's $25 for, and I don't know whether that's something we should think about.
That's a great question, and just to build on that, if I may, there is an emphasis from the public of wanting to see Narcan more widely available, especially with our safety staff. it's interesting to hear that you have seen it for $25. In actuality, what we found from the data is that it's actually being sold between $45 and $50. But that's a conversation. I also represent our department on our strategic planning group, which is our Safe, Vibrant, and Healthy Substance Use and Overdose Prevention group. And it's having access through the city of Raleigh in a variety of ways is one of the items that's on our agenda. So we hope to advance that, if I may say that. Okay. And then just to sort of fast forward, as I shared comments about the adverse childhood experiences work, Wake County has now moved into sort of the next level of not just raising awareness to the impacts of ACEs, but actually having conversations about how to build resilient individuals and also communities. And so as a department, we actually provided training to staff just right before COVID on providing folks with skills to help them build resilience. But then also we've had the opportunity to work with community agencies as well to shift that focus and to really focus the messaging around growing resilience. And so you'll be hearing more about that in the next several weeks or so. So I do want to spend a few minutes just talking a little bit about how we are focusing on advancing physical well-being. A few programs that I want to highlight is our summer food service program that our department has supported way in advance of me arriving. In addition, this year we partnered with North Carolina Food Bank or the Food Bank of Eastern North Carolina on a new program. And then in addition, I wanted to throw in sort of our internal efforts in promoting physical activity to our participants. So to drill down a little bit, I do want to talk about our summer food service program and share a few stats with you. So as you can see in Wake County, there are 13 sponsors that provide meals. There are about 246,000 meals that are provided, 685,000 lunch. And then for us, we provide snacks rather than supper, so about 35,000. Raleigh Parks and Rec serves as one of the sites that actually deliver the meals. So we have sponsors, say for instance, Wake County Child Nutrition Services or Interfaith Food Shuttle, who actually prepare the meals for the sites. I wanted to share just some numbers in terms of the number of meals that were served between 2019 and 2023. And as you can see, we serve about 15 locations, excuse me. And these are our express summer camp locations. And meals are served between June and August. And as you can see, in 2019, we served about 35,000 meals, dropped off a bit during the height of the pandemic, and now we're sort of sadly again back up to about between 22 and 26,000 meals that we served during the 10-week period. To move on to a new partnership that we are forging forward with, and this is with the Food Bank of Eastern North Carolina. This year, we partnered to host 6 events, and these are pop-up market sort of produce distribution events. 4 were sort of smaller events for our community at Lions Park, and then 2 specifically focused on the Latinx community surrounding Barwell Community Center. As you can see, we have a tremendous group of partners who were there to provide wraparound services. I want to highlight the Latinx pop-up market a little bit so that we could sort of highlight the impacts of that. So the goal of this event was to focus on culturally meaningful foods or resources for that community. And as you can see here, we had tremendous success in terms of the impact. About 1,700 individuals, 385 households were impacted, 736 youth under the ages of 18, and then 85 seniors. Lions Park, over the course from January through April, there were 2,896 individuals who were impacted, 847 households, 1,225 youth under the ages of 18, and then 60 seniors. And note that we distributed 30,765 pounds of produce during that time. So a few opportunities, all that I couldn't put on one slide. So I went for sort of the ones that were emerging. So as we think about continuing to advance social, emotional well-being and intellectual well-being as well, we have an opportunity to continue our collaborative effort to focus on reducing the impacts of ACEs, but more or less really teaching our youth on how to cope during stressful times. So we'll have an opportunity later this year to implement a social emotional learning curriculum into existing youth programs to teach resilience skills. We'll also have an opportunity to bring services into communities that oftentimes have challenges getting to locations to receive services, especially when we think about from a mental health perspective. In addition, we'll have an opportunity to provide and support Wake County's effort in promoting literacy. And so actually represent a department on a Wake County group that's working to provide and ensure that books are available in our community centers, and then also supporting literacy events. And then in addition, we are looking to support additional campaigns that focus on academic advancement and overall enrichment and improvement as well. At this time, that concludes my comments. So I'm going to pause my rhetoric and see if there are any questions from the board.
I am so impressed with this. This was a piece that I didn't know. Thank you, Stephen. I didn't know that this was, well, you had something to do with it, Stephen. I'm just delighted. You know, it didn't, I remember when I first got on the board, Ken introduced the program for resilience and invited him to come and speak to the Raleigh Quaker meeting. But it just is, you know, I just value parks so much in so many ways, and that we have an aspect of our program that deals with emotional well-being. It's wonderful. I don't know, my heart feels very full that we have, I mean, I know you hear me talk about the environmental things all the time, and that's part of being emotionally healthy, is having a vibrant natural world. But thank you so much for what you all are doing.
Thank you for those comments. I appreciate it. I almost wore my shirt that says, "Every day is filled with emotions," but I didn't think it was appropriate for this setting.
It's underneath there.
Other questions? I'm going to go back to your introduction and ask you to tell us about the apple and the banana.
Sure, I'll make it very short and sweet. So yes, I brought in an apple, and I almost did that tonight, but I didn't do it either. I have had the privilege of working with some pretty amazing people in my career, and one that really stood out for me was that I came from ECU, so I transitioned from ECU to the city. Was one of my colleagues who always did a talk on design. So. And the idea behind the apple and the banana is that when you think of natural things in the environment, and I think Parks and Rec communicates this and bring people into spaces where those elements are sort of right there in front of us, we kind of take them for granted, is the fact that there are so much that's around us that's by design. So when you think about an apple is big enough for you to grab it. If you were to grab an apple and put it up to your stomach, it's just about the size of your stomach. So when you eat that apple, you feel satiated, and oftentimes you don't want anything else. So you get the sugar, you get the fiber, you get what you need to be satiated. The same thing with a banana. However, when you think about natural food for folks, right, we kind of think about food as medicine, is that an apple and a banana are examples of foods that are the perfect grab and go food. They're the perfect fast food, right? And there are no negative benefits from it unless you eat too many of them. So that was my message, is that we are an organization that live and promote and provide programs and services in spaces that are by design. If you go to a park often enough, a lot of times your stress level, the research shows, is going to be super low. If you spend time in our programs connecting, being physically active, your overall health outcomes are going to be better in the long term. And so that's the message that I tried to get across, is that we're an organization that provide experiences that are by design.
Other questions, Liam?
Yeah, really great programs that you're doing. I was wondering how many or how much of your work relies on volunteers, and are you getting enough volunteers?
So we do get some volunteers in our larger scale programs. In fact, we're currently working on a community mental health check-in for May 2024, and so a lot of that work will rely on volunteers. A lot of the work is also, from a health and wellness perspective, has relied on staff putting in extra hours to help support us through some of the initiatives that we decided we want to implement.
Thank you.
One thing that we hear a lot about for especially teenagers right now is the increased levels of anxiety. And in fact, I think even our Raleigh Youth Council mentioned that they had done an activity that involved stress reduction. And so are you developing programs that are specifically focused on ways of addressing anxiety? Because it's really across the spectrum of all sorts of young people from all kinds of backgrounds.
Yes. So going back to one of the bullet points that I had on the slide as aspirational opportunities, is we're looking to partner with a variety of agencies to do a train-the-trainer model for dialectic behavioral therapy techniques. And essentially they are applicable to a young child all the way up to adults. Essentially, they're kind of need help fast strategies that you can teach any individual to sort of help them calm down sort of in the midst of anxiety. For example, if you were to put your hands together and rub them really fast for about 30 seconds and open them, you'll feel a cool sensation in the middle of your palm. What that does is it allows you to shift up from what they call your lizard brain, which is your brain that's always looking for trouble, up to your prefrontal cortex, so you can kind of think through. So the program that we're looking at is really to sort of prepare our staff and provide staff with the information and the skills that they can utilize in their interactions with participants, be it summer camp or other programs, and impart some of those simple and accessible skills to them so that they can build their toolbox and utilize them anywhere that they are to sort of find a sense of calm.
Very good. Anybody else have any other questions for Mr. Worrell? Well, thank you so much. Thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for presenting to us tonight. It really is. It's the whole body, and so thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The next thing we have is Andrea on Commission for Accreditation of Parks Recreation Agencies. You wear many hats.
Are you loading me up? Okay. Good evening, members of the Parks Board. I'm here to officially announce my campaign for prom queen on behalf of, in support of Debbie's financial assistance program. But as always, they do phenomenal work. Great job, Debbie and Ainsley. I am here to talk to you this evening about something really exciting for our department. Raleigh Parks and Cultural Resources is actively pursuing CAPRA accreditation through the National Recreation and Park Association. What is CAPRA? CAPRA is the Commission for Accreditation of Park and Recreation Agencies, which provides quality assurance and quality improvement of accredited park and recreation agencies through the United States by providing agencies with a management system of best practices. Currently, there are 206 agencies accredited nationwide, only 14 agencies in North Carolina. That is less than 2% of local park and recreation agencies across our nation. So this is a really big deal, and we're really excited to be pursuing this. Excuse me. Why CAPRA accreditation? CAPRA aligns and is consistent with PRCR's mission statement. Together, we connect and enrich our communities through exceptional experiences. These faces, this is what we do. We just heard from two phenomenal presenters tonight about the programs and services that we offer as an agency. And this is the result of those individuals that just left the room. Here's also why. It allows us to showcase our commitment to quality service. It allows us to access our department against national best practice. It ensures our processes are streamlined for effectiveness and added efficiency. It ensures that we are transparent with ourselves and our communities. We are accountable to our mission and vision, and we have consistent business practices that aid and advance our commitment to equity. This process requires an invested interest by our department head. We cannot do this without having that value, that understanding of how important this is to our agency and to our community. And that is one of the things that I want to highlight from Stephen's message. He clearly understands that this is not about us receiving a pat on the back, but this is about how we serve our community. CAPRA requires that we meet and comply with national standards. Accreditation is based on our agency's compliance with the 154 standards. The agency must meet 142 standards to achieve national accreditation. So out of those 154 standards, we must meet 142 of them. Of course, we are a phenomenal department, so guess how many we are striving for? 154. There are 10 identified areas of park and recreation operational functions in which these standards fall under. They are agency authority, role, and responsibility, planning, organization and administration, human resources, financial management, programs and services management, facility and land use management, public safety, law enforcement and security, risk management, evaluation, assessment, and research. So CAPRA is really about not necessarily what we do as an organization. It's about how we do this. We know that these are fundamental operational functions already that we should be doing. It is really about telling our story of how we achieve these standards that are within these operational areas. You will notice here that there are two sets of numbers in each of these operational functions. You will see one that is highlighted with an S and one that is highlighted with an F. So the ones that were highlighted with the F are our fundamental standards. There are 36 fundamental standards. The agency must comply with each of these standards to achieve accreditation. If we do not hit all 36 of these, then we do not become nationally accredited. There are 118 non-fundamental standards, and again, to reach that 142 number, we must comply with 106 of these standards to obtain initial accreditation. Of course, again, we are striving for the 118 non-fundamental standards so we can successfully achieve 154 standards, which would be 100%. In order to do this, we have devised two teams. One team is our implementation and strategy team, and I do have one of those members with us this evening, Ms. Abby Emery for training and development. She is assisting with the training plans that must accompany our strategic plan for achieving CAPRA. We have Christy Jones, who's over planning and logistics, so she's helping create that timeline and actually communicating that information out to our staff. And we have Mr. Warren Davis, who's over the internal and external engagement. Each of these individuals are very invested in these areas and were selected because of the work that they do. Whenever we were putting this team together, we wanted to make sure that we had individuals that had a vested interest in that skill set, but also a vested interest in us achieving CAPRA. One of the things that we wanted to do whenever we initiated this process is that we wanted to make sure that the staff within our department understood what CAPRA truly was. A lot of times whenever you're talking about assessment processes, there's a little bit of anxiety. Are people coming in to judge me, to rate me? But we wanted them to know that this is about us learning what you do, so we can communicate back to you how you will help us achieve CAPRA accreditation. We will not achieve CAPRA without our staff. It is because of the work that they do day in and day out. We are hosting CAPRA tours, so we get out, we meet, we learn, we understand what is happening so we can effectively communicate that across the department. This cannot be a siloed process. We understood that going in, and we have been able to achieve that along the way. So we are still continuing with the CAPRA tours of getting out and talking to folks in the phase 1 implementation. Another thing that we had to do was really take the time to assess ourselves. We will have visitors that will come in and assess us at the end of this process, but we wanted to know if we were really ready to put our name in the hat. And so in the spring of 2023, we conducted a pre-assessment where we actually went in, we compared ourselves to what the national standards were requiring. So we did a basic overview of that process. Based off of that outcome, we said, hey, we're in pretty good shape. We do great things in the city of Raleigh. We are ready to go. So we actually submitted our application in the summer of 2023. And of course, we talked about the fundamental versus the non-fundamental standards. So we really wanted to have a strategy in place to ensure that we met it. So what we are doing now is we're working on addressing all of those fundamental standards and any standards that require review or approval by our director. We are now entering into phase 2 implementation. This is an ongoing process. Not only does CAPRA require annual reporting, it also requires that we submit our application for reaccreditation every 5 years. And so one of the things that we knew we wanted to do to be sustainable is that we thought about aligning this process with key job tasks and responsibilities within our department. This alignment helps with multiple purposes. It helps support the action items that are identified in our Parks Recreation System Plan. This is very much connected to the work that TJ McCourt and Lauren Capridge are doing, leading our update of our plan. It helps staff connect the work that they do and help them better understand how the work that they do will help us achieve CAPRA and reaccreditation over time. And then again, we want to make sure that we're aligning this work and this compliance of the standards so we stay ready and don't have to get ready whenever it's time for reaccreditation. This is a great way of doing this. It also requires collaboration. And so again, I mentioned Warren Davis, who's over our internal and external stakeholder engagement process. One of the things that phase 2 allows us to do as we move into that, we understand that we're having to work with our internal stakeholders which are other departments, Office of Sustainability, Human Resources, our Finance Department, because there are standards that fall within those categories. But we also recognize the importance of collaborating with our external stakeholders, our community partners. And it is very important to note that you, as the members of the Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board, are important key stakeholders in this process. How do you show up? You show up by the advocacy that you do when you're championing the work, when you're going out and you're participating in programs, you're guiding us and leading us and advising us on best practices, which CAPRA is about best practice. Your participation and your involvement on the committees on which you serve. We have to document that. We have to show the support of the board members and how they're also participating in that process. And then your support and advocacy of the community engagement activities, right? So I'm giving very tangible things that the board has already been doing, but we need for you to do more of, and know that you will, because we have a great board that is always supportive of the work that we do here in Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources. But we cannot get this accomplished without your support as well. Our CAPRA initiative team leads. I mentioned the strategy team, and so these are the folks that are really working on that overall process. But truth be told, our team leads are the ones that are really leading this process and getting the work done. These are the subject matter experts on these particular standards. What I refer to the standards, sometimes you remember word problems back in grade school, right? Whenever your teacher would be like, make sure you read all of the words, make sure that you pay attention to all of those little keywords. That's what the CAPRA standards are. They're just a grown-up edition, right? And so these individuals are really having to read these standards and dissect them to make sure that the evidence that we're putting forth actually complies with the standard. And so we have Jay Butts that is assigned to Chapter 1, Karen McLeod, Halim McCullough, who was in the room with us this afternoon, Valerie Beasley, Josh Powell, Kira Stewart, Christy Cornell, Deborah Houston, who we heard from tonight. She's all over the place doing great things for the department, Robert Stewart, and Douglas Porter. These are the champions of this work, and I cannot thank them enough for the work that they are doing. They're actually going in and really indulging themselves in this work. And these are the individuals that helped us increase our CAPRA participation for staff from 2% to over 15% in the department. Again, CAPRA cannot be a siloed process, and so they went out, they advocated for people to serve on these teams, and together they are pulling this information together for these standards to be met. Additional components for the teams, they're conducting research. They're looking at what we do internally as an agency. They're also comparing what we do to our sister agencies or other CAPRA accredited agencies. They're writing this through these narratives, which requires technical writing. This is how we tell our story. They are looking at opportunities for training to see where we need to involve and educate our staff. We're looking at policy review and design to make sure that our policies align with the current work that we're doing today. Are there areas where we need to develop new policies, and also processes, right? Are we able to adapt our processes so our staff are able to work more effectively and efficiently? So they're doing a lot of work and solving word problems at the same time. So if they were here, we would give them a round of applause. So what are our goals? So CAPRA is a 2-year process. We started in 2023. We would like to submit our self-assessment report in the winter of 2025. After we do that, we will host the CAPRA assessment team in the spring of 2025, and then attend the National Recreation Park Association hearing in the fall of 2025, where we will, I'm not going to even say hope to, we will be receiving our national accreditation from NRPA. This is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It requires commitment and investment. We are known as an agency, a department that works hard. right? Every time you're getting presentations on the work that folks are doing, but we also play hard. And so these are some pictures from our luncheon fund that was hosted over the summer, just to thank the staff for their commitment of that pre-assessment, which was not easy. It was a 3-month process of going in and really assessing our department based off of the standards that were in their respective chapters. And so we're well on our way. Our theme is cruising to Capra. And so I say there ain't no stopping us now, and I wouldn't be myself if I wasn't a little bit extra. And so we actually have a line dance, and you know, on every cruise ship there's always a good line dance. So we are well on our way, and ain't no stopping us now. So thank you for your support and any questions that you may have.
Questions from the board for Andrea?
So I'm a big fan of continuous improvement just for the sake of itself, so this is great. I was wondering if the accreditation brings any opportunities or resources to Raleigh that wouldn't be accessible without the accreditation, you know, whether it's grants or anything really.
It does. It's not a guarantee, but what it does is it positions us for gold medal. It positions us for improved partnerships, collaborations, grants. So, and it really gives you an opportunity to really assess yourself to see where you can seek those future opportunities as well. But yes, being accredited helps with the efficiency and the effectiveness, that's right. So we're able to, you know, really be able to clearly understand where we want to go and seek those opportunities. And it is in the parks world, it is, like I said, less than 2%. Of park and recreation agencies, so it's really a big.
Sometimes it's the deciding factor with national grants when a funder is looking to say, you know, you're both good agencies, and someone can say I'm accredited and they're not. Then it says, okay, they have chosen to have an outside agency look at their way they do finances, way they do budget, how things get approved. This one you're really good, but no one has kind of endorsed that you do things to the national best standard. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Hip, hip, hooray. I mean, I'm just going, wow, we're a biophilic city, and now we're going to do this too. Yeah. Good work.
I want to know how you do this and your other very full-time job, Andrea. And I guarantee you, I saw her volunteering last year at Holiday Express, and I bet she'll be there again this year. So this woman shows up and puts it up.
I have a great team and great leadership, and the folks that are serving on these teams are excellent. They're excellent. They're vested in both initiatives, Capra and the equity work, and that pays, and it really helps.
Any other? Yeah, Hugh.
I like to say hats off to you guys. It's great to be a part of an organization, an agency that really stands behind and supports this. Because I've worked for a local municipality that the leadership did not support us going for Capra accreditation. So it is great that the city is backing you guys on this. It's a great thing to have. And I love Parks and Recs. So, you know, Orlando is where it's going to be, right?
Cruise, right? That goes along with our theme. So, what is it? Cruise capital of the world. So, right. I mean,
I was wondering if her timing was intentional. Yeah. Happened to be going to Atlanta or Orlando. Be reviewed, but yeah, this is my 18th year, and the department started twice, but we've never applied. Like you do the pre-assessment, and you're like, yeah, it looks okay, and leadership just said, well, this isn't a priority, and. I'll say with Andrea's leadership, the department is getting behind making it a priority. And Hugh knows this because he was certified. It forces me to become a certified park professional now. Andrea came in, she's like, which I have to take a national test. And she's like, you realize you have to get certified too. And I was like, we already hit send on the application too.
It's already sent, it's official.
Just quickly, I'm sure you understand that accreditation agencies are always impressed by in-process reviews and reallocation of assets, because that's how you determine throughout the cycle what's working and what's not working. And people who don't know anything about what you're doing will respect you because they know you're watching the process and watching the dollars go through. So
The
make
improved
sure you
transparency to ourselves
keep
and to
repeating
our
that.
community,
And
absolutely.
people who don't even know what you do will be appreciative of your asset allocation.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So thank you so much for your presentation and for all you do and all the hats you wear.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Next on our agenda is, I think it's Gary Claiborne back there, I see. And we're presenting on the Tarboro Road Community Advisory Group and Situation Assessment, which he may be preempting you, but Kara Strang on our board presented to City Council last Tuesday.
The combined one she did, not Tarboro. Tarboro is standalone.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
She did the Chavis Top Green.
She did,
and
and she sat for 3.5 hours, so she was in my thank yous in the director's report. So thank you, Kara, very much.
Okay, great. So I didn't preempt you, and we'll just slide right in, and we'll pretend I didn't say that. So I was wrong.
All right. Well, good evening to all the board members. My name is Gary Claiborne. I am Capital Project Supervisor within Raleigh Parks, and I am managing the community engagement portion of the Tarboro Road Park project, which is also part of the 2022 Parks Bond. I'm here tonight to present an overview of the situation assessment and review the community advisory group list, which has been determined by the project's CAG selection committee. Just outline of tonight's presentation. I'll give a project overview, an overview of the community context situation assessment, which you all should have received as part of your memo packet. Community profile analysis, the process we're going through for engagement and the CAG and the proposed CAG membership, and then next steps. So the park itself is located east of downtown within Council District C. The park and the community center serve the College Park, Pender Hill, and Idlewild neighborhoods. Other nearby parks include Lavelle Moulton, Fisher Street Parks, Roberts, Oakwood, and Chavis Parks are also close by. The park site is a little over 3 acres. Existing buildings are the community center, as well as the historic St. Monica Teen Center. The existing parking wraps around the east and north side of the park. Existing site amenities are a playground, picnic shelter, and tennis courts. There are also several large trees that provide shade in the middle and along the edges of the site. As described in the 2022 Parks Bond Package, Tarboro Road Park project will be a complete redevelopment of the park, including a new community center and new outdoor amenities, along with interior improvements to the St. Monica Teen Center. The budget for the bond is $29.5 million, and then there's also an art budget of $150,000. There are other areas of public investment around the park, including the bus rapid transit line that will have a station stop right at the southern property line of the park. And then 2 blocks south of the park is the city's purchase of the old North Carolina DMV site. As far as project schedule, this past summer and into this fall, we prepared the situation assessment and went through the CAG selection process. Next year, starting in January, we plan for the design consultant contract to be presented to City Council. Following execution of that contract, we will then start a 12-month community engagement and schematic design process. Through 2025 and 26 will be more advanced design and permitting, and then 2026 to 2028 is bidding and construction. As part of this process, Raleigh Parks prepared a situation assessment report. Key to that report is understanding the equity and demographic makeup of the area around the park, a process that will help Raleigh Parks and the design consultant team start the community engagement process. Per the current equity process priority analysis of the city, Tarboro Road Park is within an area determined to be in the second to the highest priority level. Prioritizing investments in these communities helps assure that Raleigh Park sites, facilities, and programs are more accessible to the communities that will benefit the most from these public resources. Within the situation assessment itself, you probably saw that there were two demographic analysis tools. Raleigh Parks commonly uses these tools within the planning process. The first that you're seeing right here is the 10-minute walk demographic analysis. Within this area, we have a population of a little over 2,000 people. This area is significantly lower in median household income than the rest of the city. There's also significantly more households with one or more people with a disability. More households are below the poverty level. The median age is 40. There's a higher BIPOC population, and then there's also higher renter-occupied housing units. Second demographic is the 5-minute drive analysis, which presents a much larger demographic area. There's around 31,000 folks in that area. But again, there's a lower median household income than the rest of the city. There is a lower youth population within this area, with the median age being in the mid-30s. There's also, again, like the previous analysis, a higher renter-occupied housing units. As part of the overall bond project planning, each bond project was assigned a level of community engagement participation. Given the importance of Tarboro Road Park to the community and the scale of the project, this project is at the collaborate level. Collaborate is based on giving a strong level of decision-making into the hands of the community. And this level also sets up the need for a community advisory group to represent the neighborhood and to guide the project in a way that best serves the entire community. The public participation playbook outlines the steps for establishing a CAG. And note that a CAG cannot be a substitute action for a broader engagement with the public. Specific guidelines for the CAG include a diverse membership, responsibility of the CAG members to help facilitate information sharing between the community and planning staff. The CAG will vote on key decision points and give final recommendations to the Parks Board. And the CAG will work through a consensus-based process. So during July and August of this year, Raleigh Parks had several CAG applications available in both online and hard copy formats. We had multiple viewings of that online posting, as well as several copies of the hard copies picked up. At the end, we received 30 applications that were received by the end of August, which was the deadline period. Here are the methods that we use for the CAG recruitment and outreach. You may have seen a similar graphic in the last month's presentation. We put up signage, bilingual signage. We also had posters and information cards posted at the several libraries in the area, the Tarboro Road Center, St. Monica Teen Center, at the Raleigh Municipal Buildings. We also had current information on our project website, social media announcements, as well as at least 5 weeks noted within the Raleigh Parks weekly digital newsletter. We also did direct outreach to the community through email and phone. We reached out to known park patrons, area businesses, faith-based facilities, HOAs and apartment management, CAC leadership, Raleigh Youth Council, several other nonprofit organizations within this part of town, and then various city boards and commissions. In early September, Raleigh Parks convened a selection panel of city board members to review the applications and shortlist potential candidates. So I want to just kind of give a big thank you for all those that were part of that selection committee. Here is some snapshot demographics of the selected members for the CAG based on gender, age, time at current residence, race, and education. And just kind of want to note too that these demographics shown here too really represent the entire application pool as well. So what you see before you and was also included in the memo, this is the list of CAG applicants that were recommended by the selection committee. We have a total of 11 public members shown on the left, and then 2 Parks Board members, 13 members in all. So next steps for the next year or so At tonight's meeting, we invite the Parks Board to review and vote on the CAG membership list. And then starting early next year, as previously mentioned, the design consultant contract award is planned to go to council. That will then start the 12-month engagement process, which will also coincide with the schematic design process. And ultimately, that will be presented to the Parks Board and to the council for review and approval. With that.
All right. First, before we have a motion to approve the group, do we have questions from Mr. Claymore? Comments from the board?
So we're voting on the membership of the CAG only. Okay.
Since you were part of the selection panel, do you have any comments or?
I was on this and Chavis, and I would say that this group was much, much larger and felt like it was a better distribution.
Very good. Question, comment?
Very briefly, it has Octavia Rainey and Helen Tart on it. It's going to be a good panel.
It will be a vocal group. I
don't know the other
ones. All right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the Tarboro CAG membership.
I move that we approve the public members.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And I'd just like to take a second, related but unrelated to this. I've mentioned this to Stephen, and I read the situation assessment. It sounds like when we're talking about a situation assessment, it sounds like a military document. It does not sound, it doesn't have anything warm and fuzzy that makes you feel like it's a planning document for a park. And so I just challenge you all to go back and put your heads together to come up with a new term. I mean, we're already deep into the woods of this bond, but maybe Shang Wen with her design background, but we've got, maybe there's some other community that uses a better word that we can adapt and adopt, because that is just it's rigid, it's just it just doesn't move me at all, and I think it affects community involvement when we don't speak a language that people can relate to. Then we leave people at the edges, and so and then I have, this may be a future thing, but you are also the staff person in charge of Smoky Hollow. Yes, and when will we see a schematic design on that?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I was going to pitch that right after this.
Oh, is that on?
We do, we do have an open house December 9th, which is a Saturday.
I saw that.
From 10 to 2 at the Halifax Park Community Center.
Did put that on my calendar.
I welcome everyone to attend, everyone that's listening remotely too. We plan to have many staff involved, as well as a large number of the design team available for answering questions. It's meant to be an open house format. It's meant to be an open forum, open discussion. We'll be presenting a series of boards to say, you know, this is how we got to this process. This is where we stand, and I was just reviewing a lot of the boards today, and we got some really good stuff to show, I think. So
great. Thank you.
Similar note, what's going to be, since we're talking about Smoky, is going to be in my director's report comment. On Tuesday, the council will likely see the hillside of where Smoky is, we're looking at as a disposition. So, because really it can't be it wouldn't function as a part of the park. So we're
Which side, the Capitol Boulevard?
Not the Capitol Boulevard side, the opposite side.
Other side of
yes.
Pigeon House branch?
That's right. Yeah. So we're looking at, is that something that we can sell and recoup funds, because that doesn't have a full budget, but that would be up to the council. So
it's It's a third of an acre.
Yeah.
May I ask a question? How much land is it?
Gary just
Gary, how
It's a
much?
third of an acre, and it's literally a
like-
sliver of land
yeah, if you-
that kind
it's
of
like a shear
roughly
wall.
parallels their eastern property line. It's an area that slopes down right now. If you were to go out there, it's a kudzu covered slope. It would actually, there's benefit for the development that is proposed possibly to occur on that side. It would be a benefit to them in terms of construction easement. They wouldn't have to go onto our property to construct. It's also something that we would not have to stabilize, which we would have to stabilize if it
Considerable
remained a
amount of
slope. It's a
money
very
invested
steep
in that.
slope. Kudzu is going to be the only thing that holds it, short of a structural retaining wall. So there is some, not only are we getting money to the city from the land sale, but also we are not going to have to pay for the, it's
Stabilization.
estimated $500,000 we'd have to pay to stabilize that slope.
Yeah. And the council would decide, I don't want to make sure you understand, the council will decide where those funds go. It doesn't necessarily mean it comes back to the Parks Department. From a policy perspective, they could invest it into anything.
Well, I could entertain a motion that we request that council put any funds from the sale of a park to go into the
So
park.
they won't vote on it Tuesday. It's initiation. There's a public process for any disposition. So we'll report back to you on the status of that.
Well, we might be happy to entertain such a motion.
So why I wanted to know about the size, and thank you for telling me about the coverage with kudzu. If it's developed, what will the impact be to the park?
Our design team has looked at this very, very
Well,
carefully.
I'm sure you have. That's what-
Initially, I'll be a little honest with you, initially had looked at a little larger area, and we actually knocked it back because we felt like it was going to impact some of the grading and area we need for the construction itself. But it is, of all the areas of the park, it was the least programmed area.
Okay.
It was not, again, it was going to have to be a stabilized slope. It had no public programmatic or functional use. So,
Thank you.
I attended a open house that the developer had within the last month, 3 weeks ago. There were no city staff there, but they were presenting their ideas for the development there, and they do envision their building and then a step down access to the park. So I would assume that that part would be incorporated, and that then it would allow access to the park, and it would stabilize the slope. So they did show schematics that.
yeah, and we do see that as, a probable entry into the park from that area if they develop that according to what they have shown to date, so.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much, and we've approved, did we voted on it? Yep, and it passed. And anything else? We appreciate you covering several topics.
All right, thank you.
All right, the next is the Neighborhood and Community Connection Program, the project priorities for the 2022 bond. And we have Mr. Bender.
Good evening, Board. My name is David Bender. I'm a project manager with Parks Rec Cultural Resources, and I work primarily with Greenways. And I'd like to introduce a colleague that has been also a big part of this effort. This is Ben Van Wagener. He's helped us with all of the GIS technology, and he's on hand here if there's any questions regarding GIS that I can't answer. So
I'll say, you see all these pretty maps we make? This is the guy that does them.
Yes, it is. So this evening, what I'm going to do is give you a little background on Neighborhood Community Connections Program, what has been done fairly recently, and what we are working on for future in the Neighborhood Community Connection Program. Real quick background, the program, the point of it was to provide opportunities for improved connectivity to areas that were lacking in access to greenways, parks, or neighborhoods that are more vulnerable in health-wise or in health equity. It was an opportunity to to provide better access to both parks and greenways. Oh, thank you. And I apologize, I've had a rough day with allergies today, so bear with me. One important part of this program is to note that there was a cross-departmental support. We couldn't have done this without the use of our colleagues in parks, the planning and development group, transportation, and also engineering services. They've all been a real big part of getting us through this process. So we want to make sure that we give credit to where it's really due. When the program, which you have seen previously, it was with TJ and his team, and the planning team was initiated. It was based on looking at existing plans and studies that you had seen or that staff had worked on, public requests that had been submitted to the board or to the town, and also they had developed a GIS model that was that focused primarily on accessibility to parks. And then, of course, there are public-private partnerships were also part of the criteria that they used in identifying neighborhood community connection projects. Little quick background on funding. In 2014, there was a park bond referendum for $3 million. Once the policy was adopted in October 17, staff initiated this effort and identified 10 project locations. 6 of those project locations are complete, and there are 4 that are currently in design. And then in 22, with the most recent park referendum, $5 million was approved, and $4 million of that budget currently remains. Real quick look at the projects that have been completed and are currently designed. You see on the map on the left gives you the blue stars, shows the locations of those, and the graph to the right gives you an idea of where those projects were. So these were both trail and park connection projects. This whole effort came out of the strategic plan initiative, GNR 2.2. This for expanding greenway connectivity and accessibility across the system, and show that this was really how this initiative was aligned with the Greenway Master Plan. I was the team lead. I am the team lead on that strategic plan initiative, GNR 2.2. So this is an effort that came out of that strategic effort, and is now we've integrated into our program, as well as and with our staff in developing this program and finding these potential park and greenway connections. This is a little quick graph, flow chart that gives you kind of an idea of the process which we're going through. The project origination, which was the initial effort in identifying projects. We've created, we've expanded and enriched that process and identified 26 potential sites. And then we have developed a prioritization criteria where we tried to zero down on some of those projects to make it a little bit more manageable size. And then we will prioritize those, and then there will be a community engagement in that. And I'll give you a little bit more information on that. Some of this information that was the data that was based on, this looks familiar to you, I'm sure. This was the park access data that came from the Wake County Vulnerability Index. This shows where the more vulnerable neighborhoods are, where in terms of distance to nearest parks, greenway trails, where they have opportunities to enjoy open space. And then there's also taking that, another form of that database was taking unemployment, low income, and the maps here that you are seeing here showing some of those vulnerability areas. So as our initiative was developed and as we brought this on into this program, we were able to come up with it's safe to say that what we've done is we've taken the existing, we've enhanced the criteria that was used before, and we've taken the GIS data analysis they've done, and we've added data to it, and we've enhanced it in order to help us to identify new projects for this Neighborhood Community Connection program. Those criteria, again, are the social equity and population density, those two data sets that I just showed you. And out of the growth GNR 2.2 initiative was identifying proximity to growth centers. And then in our gap analysis, which my colleague Ben was responsible for in developing, was identifying where there were gaps in existing access into the Greenway. And then, of course, to try to help refine our locations, we added in identifying where there were existing Greenway easements. Acquiring Greenway easements it's not impossible to do, but it does help to expedite and reduce the cost of the project. So we tried to use that as an opportunity to help us to find potential areas. So what this has done is it's opened up the network. It's improved accessibility to areas in neighborhoods that could not have opportunities for walking to these and accessing these facilities. For safety, it's created more, this will create more accessibility, more opportunities for staff or any type of emergency response to be able to get to some of these areas where there is some constrained, reduced access points. So out of the process, we came up with this methodology. Again, this is taking some of the same data that was used before, but we've added, and then we've scored each of these criterias to help us to come up with a quantifiable number that helped us to identify which projects and how to prioritize which those projects were. So out of that effort were those 26 projects. The map that I put in front of you shows those 26 sites in front of you. It also shows you those 7 previous project locations that we are working on, and it also adds into public-private partnerships that we have identified where we're in various stages of development. So it shows you that the distribution across the city is pretty wide. It does cover quite a bit of the districts as well as to the areas in the city. So when we identified these sites that were prioritized, our next step was it had to determine whether it was constructible, and that's if there's challenging terrain like steep slopes, are there streams, river, water, wetlands, are there environmental concerns, are there needs for structures like boardwalks, bridges, retaining walls. These are all items that are, again, we have worked on several of these projects over the years. Projects can be built with structures, but sometimes if we can find a buildable, accessible connection, which is going to be less impact on environmental, existing water features, and fewer structures, then we're trying to find those, and that helps us to utilize the funding that we have for more projects. So again, here's that map that I tried to give you. It's hard to see on the screen here, so I wanted to put it right in front of you so you can really see a little bit better. And it's this, again, thank you for Ben for helping us to create this. Again, this gives you the 7 sites which we have narrowed down out of those original 26 sites that I had mentioned previously. So in the stars, the little yellow stars, you'll see those are the 7 sites that we have come up with. And you can also see some of the public-private connections as well as all of the 26 sites that were identified. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to each one of these 7 sites, and I'm going to give you show you what we've been able to identify at this level, determining how the feasibility, the constructability of each of these locations. So this map shows you where those 7 sites are. Again, these are also reflected on that map that I put in front of you. These are the 7 sites that we came up with utilizing the criteria that we had expanded from the previous effort, and then how we had also enhanced the GIS gap analysis. So first site I want to show you is at Centipede Trail. If you look up to the right, you'll see a a vicinity map, and you can kind of see where in proximity to the city of Raleigh where this site is located. The red star that you see on Centipede Trail is a proximity to a potential trail location. What this did was it identified that there is a gap in this location on the Neuse River Greenway. We also wanted to be able to demonstrate what impact that this had on the surrounding neighborhood as far as a 10-minute walk. So the blue shade that you see shows you if this connection was to be put into this location, then we could impact approximately 202 new households. So substantial impact. The next one is an access point to Barwell Road Park. Excuse me. Anybody ever taken allergy medicine and had it kind of? Sorry, thank you. So Barwell Road Park. Right now, the only way for these areas, Chaston neighborhood, Battle Ridge North, Battle Ridge community, the only way for these areas to access the facilities at Barwell Park was to actually go all the way out to Barwell Road to access into the entrance. This location that we've identified would create a new access point into the back of Barwell Road. Now, this would also require some improvements within Barwell Park itself internally, but by positioning this connection, you can see that what it's doing is it's actually impacting 523 new homes, new households, giving them a 10-minute walk distance access to this park. Another really key element to this is you'll see the green area right, where the star is, it follows, yeah, here we go. This area that you see right here, that is an existing greenway easement. That's right. That would actually create a connection to not just Barwell Road Park, but would also tie into one of the design projects that we're working on for a neighborhood community connection project in the Battle Ridge North community. It's a HOA park, and we're utilizing that site. So this would not only connect to the Barwell Road Park, but it would also tie into our connection onto Neuse River Greenway.
Can I ask you, is the proposed connection going from the star to the park, or is it going from the green on the far right? Is it the whole length, or is it just the shorter part?
Good question. Thank you for clarifying that. So for the purpose of this effort, we're looking at identifying the connection just to the immediate east of Barwell Road Park. So it would only tie into that first neighborhood. The effective part of this idea is that it is a initial connection to that greenway easement, which would be a future connection. It would be the first effort for us to create this connection. So not only is it a local connection, but you actually start looking at almost a regional connection opportunity here.
And one other question, is that a stream area because it's so linear? I'm assuming it follows along a stream path.
Another good question. Part of our feasibility is going to be going out onto the site, surveying, looking at the constructability of this site. Right now, we don't have that level of detail. So once we get in there, we'll be able to determine what impact that terrain is going to have on the project. Is it wet? Is it sloped? So
these are proposed, not
these are proposed.
For the next step, yeah.
Excuse me. Next location is the Sanderford Road Park. Again, this is another park connection. Clear. Thank you. Again, you'll see the star is in the vicinity of the east boundary of the park area. This would tie into that adjoining neighborhood. This again would provide access, a 10-minute walk accessibility for 141 new households.
One other question on that. Is there currently, when you have a group of people and they can't get to a park, they often create what I would call a goat trail. And is there some kind of, have people created a path there already?
On this one, I don't have that answer for you. But I can tell you on one of the next ones, there are some goat trail that has been part of this. It was part of our effort in identifying.
This is already an informal connection to the scene.
Coming in out of the neighborhood?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we're formalizing.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Madam
there
Chair.
is a path.
There
sort
is
of
like that social, we call them a goat path too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ken. Gorman Street. This is at Gorman Street. This is again, you can see there is a green easement that connects Kentwood to the Gorman, which is also follows down to the new Trailwoods Drive connection project that was developed. So what this is going to do is it will connect all the way down. So again, the star is a proximity. It identifies that there is a need for accessibility or connection. Where exactly along this corridor is what we're hoping that this board will approve to allow us to move forward to. Ultimately, we would like to be able to provide the entire connection, but our effort is to try to identify what is the most constructible portion of this that will enhance the neighborhood in its accessibility.
And I just have so many questions. It's just in my nature. Forgive me, but that triangle that's just south and east of Gorman Street, is that a potential park area? I mean, it's bigger than just a greenway access, I would think. I mean, like a pocket park or something like that, long term.
Have to look into it. Sometimes these come in the form of a commitment of like an open space requirement or a dedication, but I'd have to look to determine whether it would be.
You can report that at the next time we see
I have
this.
the map up already. I'm looking for you.
Next one, Lockwood Folly, connection to Walnut Creek Greenway. This is there are some connection opportunities here, not just at this star. When we were going through our analysis, it was that greenway easement there that brought it into our results in prioritizing it. Since we saw that existing easement, that existing greenway, and that's what got our attention. And there's also a gap between access points. So that's how it got us to get into this area to start looking for potential opportunities. And again, there are some developments that are going on in this area where there are opportunities for other connections. So whether it'll be right here at this location at Lockwood Folly or anywhere along in the near vicinity where some of these developments are going on, we'll be able to go in and assess and determine, but ultimate goal is to try to improve the connectivity of this area. Again, here's 500 new households that the connection would generate anywhere along this portion of the Greenway easement or of the Walnut Creek Greenway. On Maybrook Crossing Drive, here is an existing goat trail that ties into Walnut Creek. Where the star is actually where Maybrook ends, and the rest of it is a path, a worn path that ties into Walnut Creek. This effort would impact approximately 411 households to provide them with better accessibility to the Walnut Creek Greenway. On this location, there is a connection here, and there's also potential development in that location. So there are other connection opportunities in this area. Whether we put any effort into this is an unpaved parking area. It's a unpaved connection. that could be where the feasibility, we determine that is the best location, or anywhere along here where we'll evaluate, which will enhance and provide better connections. So this star, what it does is, it gives us an idea that in this proximity that there is need for connection, and we'll be able to determine that through the feasibility.
I have a question related to the upper circle where there's potential development. My understanding, and I may be mistaken, is that currently we can't require, our UDO or we don't have the ordinances to require a developer to put in that connection. And that was one of the very specific recommendations of the Greenway Master Plan. And so my question really isn't for Mr. Bender, but for Mr. Bentley. When are we going to get those recommendations so that we can be ready to activate that kind of thing?
Good question. So we have a staff working group from Engineering, Planning and Development Services and Parks, and that's one of them that they're going through, is the language that would be appropriate that would come through this board, but ultimately goes through the Planning Commission process.
And to the City Council.
And to the City Council. And public hearings set, because once you require a developer to do something else, they have the opportunity to voice their opinions, but other municipalities are doing it, as you know. Yep.
They have been doing.
Yeah. Yep.
So that would, I hope that we'll get something on the books sooner rather than later for all of these kinds of things. And so anyway.
Here is a connection to the Neuse River Greenway. This is the location of an existing sewer project, and what the sewer and there's also a infrastructure. There's a structure right in that area too. This is an opportunity for us to provide a connection, an additional connection to this greenway, and it also gives us an opportunity to tie into a future multi-use trail that is being evaluated to tie North Rogers Lane here along New Bern Avenue, and then this could be a connection that would provide that connectivity for that multi-use trail. Our effort would not include this multi-use plan, but if we were to improve and provide this connectivity, it would create for a better complete facility. I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, is this close to any potential BRT stops?
That's what my question was going to be.
At this time, the BRT stops at WakeMed, but
Yeah,
longer-term aspirations, I would believe, to go out this far. This is 47 new households for our effort, for our connections, for creating this connectivity. There are connections up here, and there are some goat paths that kind of provide access in some of these other areas, but utilizing an opportunity for future multi-use path improvement, all this area is being, I got lots of circles on there now. That whole area is getting developed, and there's going to be so many more households. That number is going to increase. So it's going to just create a better connection point for those areas, a safer location, and without really having any really impact up here on the Raleigh Beach Road area.
Any questions?
Our next steps, we've been to the Greenway Committee September and October. What we are asking of this board is to authorize our staff to go into a contract with one of our on-call design teams to go into a feasibility study. We would take this to a 25%, enough to be able to determine what are the top projects out of these 7 or so numbered project locations that we want to prioritize and initiate our first efforts into going into 100% design, bidding into construction. Then we would bring those results back to this board again in the springtime, also with City Council for an update. All this while we would be conducting community engagement, and then have a estimated construction in 2025.
One thing I missed, and because I review these presentations, it could be the board. You could say put this in Greenway Committee so you can do a deep dive in those feasibility studies, or in the future it could come back that all 7 of them are reviewed at the board. But I would have had David put that in there. So.
But we don't need to decide that tonight.
No, I just flagged that because it does get into like a technical design review, which things we've talked about.
It does seem like it's appropriate.
But next spring you can be like, we'd like you to bring this to the Greenway Committee, so there can be a design review.
Sounds good. Any other questions, comments? Liam?
Within the feasibility study, is there sort of a quality of the 10-minute walk? Not all 10-minute walks are equal if you're crossing streets or it's not great sidewalks. Like, does that fit into the analysis of how you've decided on how many houses are going to be served?
That was.
No, so it's going to just take into account all the households that haven't been within a 10-minute walk before. It won't necessarily evaluate the quality of.
Like if you're on the street or on the sidewalk.
Ben, can you come to the mic, please?
Oh, yes,
Thank you.
Sorry. Yes, so like I was saying, it wouldn't exactly give any kind of estimate of like the quality of the 10-minute walk, just that it is within a 10-minute walk. Like if you're talking about like if it's evaluating if it's like a sidewalk that they can walk along. Normally, I think in these areas normally it's like communities with sidewalks.
It's no guarantee that all of the 10-minute is on a sidewalk or on a safe protected area.
Okay. That 10-minute walk is really just an area not evaluating like the actual quality of the walk.
Okay. Is that something that the feasibility study could address?
When we go to feasibility, it's more of an engineering study.
Okay.
So it can determine whether it's on a sidewalk or on a greenway trail. Quality is subjective to everybody around this table. What you determine quality might not be the same as Mr. Havner. It's actually one of the most interesting things our field is grappling with, like what's the quality playground? What is a quality bike ride? And I mean, there is definitely from a maintenance standard perspective, but yeah, the overall field of Parks and Recreation is how do you determine quality? And actually NC State's doing some stuff on quality play. But I think that's why I suggested the Greenway Committee review, right? Because what is that, experience that you feel like that these designs are providing for that user.
Yeah, and I think Ian's question was in the neighborhood, were there sidewalks to get you to them? Was that,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, the engineering study can do that, but you said, can it measure determine the quality?
Yeah, perhaps not quality, but simply are there sidewalks?
Yeah, that they can.
We can scope with the design team to enhance their feasibility to evaluate the pedestrian accessibility to some of these locations, and that could be wide shoulder sidewalk, whether it's improved sidewalk, 4 foot or 8 foot. They can look at that when they go out and they do the survey work. They can bring in some of those criteria. So it's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
It's also a double-edged sword, though, because you wouldn't want to penalize a neighborhood, not provide the access because they didn't have sidewalks in their neighborhood. And so I would be reluctant to see us weigh that because then we might be hurting those who need access to the Greenway the most, or a park.
Really good point, though. You want to get the surveyors out there once, so writing that scope so we pick up all those different features, because we do sometimes send a surveyor out to do the baseline, and then someone will say, "Oh, is there a curb there? Is there?" And then you're paying to mobilize someone to go out again. So a broader scope of the infrastructure assets it's a good
And I think GIS, from the stuff I've seen recently, has a pretty robust sidewalk analysis for the city. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of good analysis in terms of sidewalk data, but sometimes we are at like the mercy of the data, and sometimes it's a better use of our time just evaluating, getting boots on the ground and looking at it with your eyes rather than looking at it from top down on a map, hoping that the data is accurate or that what you're looking for is all there. So,
thank you. Dr. Johnson?
Are there standards and criteria and models that you'll be develop or have developed or have at hand for what these individual projects would look like? You mentioned one in particular that would have some construction within the neighborhood itself, not just at the connection point. Maybe you could elaborate on that.
Sure. We have design standards for all of our improvements, whether it's a boardwalk, bridge, the Greenway width. All those are standard design standards that we follow, and those would all be incorporated in the design. We generally try to provide the most of design improvements as we can in terms of structural improvements. So all those would be standardized, just similar to what we've been doing. So as far as modeling or anything that we would put in would just follow any of our typical design standards.
And they would include tree and canopy elements of the design.
Part of all of our efforts in our permitting is urban forestry's requirement for our impact on trees. So that is a significant part of our permitting effort, is surveying trees, determining which trees need to be removed, which needs to be protected. So yes, as far as determining like a percentage of canopy or what you're referring to, no, but in terms of protecting the trees and determining which trees need to be protected or identify which ones would be removed, then that is a big part of what urban forestry requires us to do. They do an inspection when we start, they do an inspection when we begin clearing, and then they do another inspection when we're done. So they have a very comprehensive effort in all of our projects.
So I guess if we're concerned with canopy, we'd want to be sure our current guidelines for preservation of existing trees and that sort of thing could dovetail into a later program for canopy enlargement and sustainability. that be pretty much accurate, what you just said? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I'll divert just one thing is when we do loop trail improvements like say Lake Lynn or Lake Johnson, we remove a lot of trees. And there's a lot of concern and impact when we remove trees, but there are so many trees out there. The canopy is so significant that even with the number of trees that were removed, if you go back to those facilities and look, it's really difficult to see the impact that we've made on that tree removal because of the significant canopy that's there, and that's all part of the tree protection and tree removal as part of the construction.
Thank you. Shengwen?
Yeah, one more question. So this is really valuable analysis, and I believe it will require a lot of information. So just wondering, what's the frequency of this evaluation process? Is it like yearly base, or does that come with the bond process?
This effort was out of two factors. One was the strategic initiative 2.2, which was which is what our initial team was to look at identifying connectivity, and the other is 2022 parks bond money. So those two factors really are driving this effort. For future projects, I'll let Stephen.
I was going to say it's probably what's driving the frequency is funding based. So we did exhaust our funds from the last bond, or nearly. With the update of the city's strategic plan, they said focus on growth areas and making more connections, which had the team go back and update the data. And then fortunately, funds were put in the parks bond. So I would say it's twofold: planning updates overall in the city, and then opportunity based with funds.
Before we take a motion and approve this, I want to commend you and thank you for the process that we've gone through within the Greenway Committee and then bringing it to this board, because that did not happen with all of the 2014 projects. And there is one in particular that does not identify a vulnerable area or an area that lacks access or an area that requires structure, and that is the Lake Boone Trail Community Connection, which has not yet been built. And I hope that given the priorities that you have laid out here that are so good, that we can apply that same kind of analysis to even ones that are under construction, so that we are cohesive in our analysis and in our review, because I think this process has been a good one, and so I commend it for backwards and forwards. But with that said, anything else? And then I'll take a motion to approve the initial set of recommendations for further study.
Thank you.
Moved by Mr. Havner.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Pereira. All in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion carries. All right. We've gone through a lot.
Thank you for the opportunity to present this to you. Have a
Thank
good
you
night.
very much.
Thank you all very much.
And thanks for the maps and things. That was very helpful. Director's report.
I will keep it short because we're at about 2.5 hours. I do want to thank your board peer, Kara. She sat through 3.5 hours before we gave her a minute to do the introduction. So appreciate her spending the time and the commitment to make sure that agenda item went through. 2 Greenway updates, one positive and one not positive. We have had a challenge with a section of a section of Greenway along Crabtree that's under construction. We have a steel issue. And last night, our Capital Area Metropolitan Planning, CAMPO, organization approved some funds to move that project forward to cover the cost of some steel. That will go to the city council the first week in December. And once I get a construction schedule, because it is a big anticipated connection for the region, not just Raleigh, I'll update the board. Been not so fortunate. There was an incident on the Greenway near Crabtree Valley Mall today. Shooting that was non-fatality, and I don't have a lot of information besides Ken and I were communicated from RPD. So once I get that, it might be in this evening's news, but I just wanted to make sure the board was aware.
Thank you.
On a more positive note, you heard some of the things today, Smoky Hollow Open House on December 9th at Halifax. Coats Cause We Care is this weekend. It's a really amazing event over at Sergeant Courtney T. Johnson. If you haven't gone, literally thousands of coats are given away. Last year, turkeys were given away, even some medicine to the community for various different nonprofit partners. And then we have a great program called Letters to Santa, which kids can drop off at community centers and we respond to. So this are 5 or 6 things I want to share.
And Holiday Express opens on
November 29th.
29th.
Yes.
And
yes.
if you want to volunteer, then when I looked the other day, they still had slots. And I did it last year, and it is lots of fun. It really is. It was kind of cold that night, but can't guarantee that 70-degree weather is going to keep up. But it is a wonderful, lots and lots of children out there enjoying themselves and their parents too. So, and you can, I think, you just go to the volunteer.
Yeah, go to RaleighParksNC.gov and Google, not Google, keyword search volunteer.
Yeah. All right. Very good. All right. Now we'll go to committees, and we've got the Parks Committee. So.
Yeah. So the one piece of business I want to bring up is that one of the members that we had approved for the Kyle Drive CAG withdrew, and so staff has made a recommendation.
News River.
Oh, News River. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
News River CAG. Yeah. The staff had recommended that we replace that member with Robert Zarzecki. So I was going to make a motion that we approve Robert Zarzecki for the CAG.
Because we've already approved all the rest of the people.
Mm-hmm.
All
Second.
Right.
Okay.
Make the motion.
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Great. Fred Fletcher Volunteer Committee. This brings up 2 matters. April Love is not here this evening, but she has agreed to chair that committee. And so she'll be sending out an email convening that group for review of applicants and things. Lindsay Saunders, who has so capably chaired that committee for the last several years, has informed the city clerk that she does not seek reappointment. So she's served for 4 years and would be up in January for another 2-year term. But given her busy schedule, she decided now was not the time to continue that. But so we will make a transition on the Fred Fletcher Volunteer Awards Committee to April Love. And Greenways Committee.
We met on Monday. We did a check-in on our work plan to see how we're progressing with that this year. A little update on what we're working on. You saw the community connections just a moment ago. Our next thing that we're tackling is the sidewalk connections in gaps and how we can delineate those. We've got a good GSI presentation on that. We're converting that map into a list that can be distributed and evaluated to make sure that we didn't miss anything. And a couple of dates.
December the 4th, the Strategic Office is putting a presentation on the Greenway Innovation project that she's been working on. And on November the 30th, there's an open house for the Mine Creek realignment.
Thank you. I missed that.
Yeah, I appreciate you leaving it for me.
We'll send those dates out to the board.
Yeah, and that's at Saratoga Park? Okay. All right, very good. And Sustainability, Wildlife, and Urban Trees Committee.
We had a no-show for the fellow, Jason Massey was his name, from the Center for Disease Control, who had volunteered to do a program
He
for
came
us.
to the Greenway Committee instead.
Well, he contacted somebody, said he was sick. He couldn't make it.
Well, I mean,
So
it was on a different day,
okay,
obviously,
yeah,
but I just knew that name rang a bell.
Anyway, we had an interesting conversation. Once again, we have some citizens that come regularly and really enjoy engaging. And if you want to donate, if you want to nominate a Tree of the Year, you better do it right away. So the Tree of the Year award, and it's a lively meeting.
Very good. All right, thank you. And so the liaison representatives, Arts Commission, and
No report for arts.
okay, and BPAC. Do you want to?
I was going to say that there's still a lot of concern about bicycle safety and pedestrian safety and crossing streets also. We need to find a better way for pedestrians to recognize car movement and vice versa. The lead interval helps on the crossings, but there's still reason to be concerned about moving safely across the streets. And also, people need to stay out of the dark areas on fast-moving roads in the middle of the night, and how we can work with that. Maybe more street lights or something, but they're looking at those kinds of things as part of their portfolio.
Right, and their meeting is coming up next Monday, the 20th, at 6 o'clock. So, Raleigh Historic Cemeteries Advisory Board. We have Mr. Craig.
Good evening, everyone. To our chair, members of the board, I am Charles Craig, one of the assistant directors for Raleigh Parks. I have the allergies going on too. I stand before you to share a couple updates for the Historic Cemetery Advisory Board. We had a fantastic meeting yesterday. Some of the things that was brought up during the meeting was around our work plan. Just a friendly reminder, we have two active committees. One is called Outreach, the other is called Education. One of the things that we're working on in our Education Committee is a brochure for educational purposes as you are able to attend or go to one of the historic cemeteries. There will be a brochure. This brochure will highlight different individuals, tell a little bit about their story and things of that nature. This will be ongoing, not just one brochure, but it may be one for this year, and we'll do another one next year until there's a collection. The purpose of it is education will understand and research, and then outreach will actually give out the material, so they'll work hand in hand. So our work plan is to work on those items, so that was a big topic that we was able to spend a lot of time on, which was fantastic. We're also looking at just continuing to do outreach and marketing as we look into the year 2024, trying to figure out what events are going on, how can we have a presence there, and share information around our historic cemeteries. With that being said, our next meeting will be in January. We are not meeting in December, but we will meet January 25th at 5:30 p.m. And that will also be at the Tucker House. Like always, you're all welcome. Any questions? Yes.
Of course, I have a question. Since cemeteries are outside, I assume it'll be an online pamphlet or piece. And are you all thinking about some kind of signage in some of the cemeteries that would, give some of the historic, I know Mount Hope pretty well, and there's some pretty amazing people there. And so, but I don't think there's any sign. You have to walk around and read all the tombstones too. And some of them aren't even marked.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and thank you. I will happily accept the recommendation. One of the pamphlet ideas is to be a hard copy for walking tours or just informational basis where folks can have a brochure. We can easily try to have that on our website with the proper approval and things of that nature, but I thank you for the recommendation, and we'll definitely take it back.
Okay, great. Thank you. Community engagement liaison reports. I think the Neuse River may be the only CAG that has actually met. There was a community input meeting that I think Ian was at. And so if you want to share anything, and then I was at the CAG meeting, and it got the ball rolling, I guess. And there are, the CAG members will be touring the 100 acres on 2 different dates, December 4th and December 2nd, maybe, for those CAG members to see the extensive acreage so that they can understand the possibilities of the park. And well, first, let me see if Ian has anything to share from the input.
It was actually a question for you, Stephen. I was wondering, one of the feedbacks I heard from both people and staff is the concern or the uncertainty for people that live around the park. And in other contexts, sharing past experiences, like people that lived around other parks that were completed. I was wondering if any interviews or surveys have been done with people that live around parks that have been built in the last 10 or 20 years that we could share that with.
Very good suggestion.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we have done that. It's fairly typical for individuals that live adjacent to a park to express concern about safety, but we haven't really circled back to say, what has your experience been? And that's something we can certainly look into, probably like not as a part of this one, but just overall saying, here's the data that shows in our 100-plus parks, the plus or minus, whatever approval rating. That's a great suggestion.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a very cool. There is, as part of the CAG, there are focus groups that will happen with lots of different groups and then lots of bigger community groups. But the very first focus groups are scheduled with all of the HOAs. And so that I'm not a part of, we are not those, but that will be staff leading those with all the different groups. So,
Can Parks Board members go and listen?
to the
Participate?
focus groups,
No, to those visit the.
to go to walk through it. Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, that would just contact Emma Lyles, and she'll give you.
Or your board members that
Yeah.
are already on the CAG.
Yeah.
Yep. But
Thank you.
I've walked the site. It's a cool tour.
Yeah.
The one thing, the question I have for Stephen is, when it comes to safety on the parks, RPD would have that information, correct?
Yeah, that they do, and I have to recall, but there's a public dashboard that shows you. They put all their information online. But yeah, we can pull that data, but we would also get it from RPD. Yep.
So great points and questions and things. So yeah.
I would like to say that the Kyle Drive Park, the CAG has met, and I believe it was last Monday. It seems so long ago. Yeah. And I got there an hour early because it was originally scheduled for 4 o'clock. And when I got there, and then Hezekiah Goodson showed up too. So we just took a walk. I escorted him to the library where he wanted to spend his hour, and I walked all around the perimeter of the park and got acquainted with it. So, but it was a very good meeting. Everybody was there except one person. I learned a tremendous amount. We have some really sharp people on the board. Hugh, are you in the Kyle Drive? Are you a Kyle Drive liaison?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because of the scheduling. When she sent out the calendar for the two, I was already scheduled to work, couldn't make it.
Okay, but you'll be. I mean, I'm just telling you, it's a good group, and you'll be wanting to participate. When you can, when you're able.
Yeah, she sent me all the information.
So that's it. Now that we're into it, I'm really gung ho. It's just I've been waiting for these meetings to happen, and now one has happened, and I'm completely satisfied, and I'm ready to go on with the process. Thank you.
Great attitude. Good. All right. I think that's all the CAGs, but they'll all start meeting more now that we've approved the Tarboro Road and we've got Chavis and all those others. I think I skipped over the Dick's Leadership Committee. And one of the things, so there were 3 things that were discussed. And that was the first one. I unfortunately meant to get the slide because the visitation and attendance data was astonishing. It was 957,000 people have visited Dick's Park in the in the last year, and there were people who challenged that number, and I spoke with the park staff afterwards, and Joey assured me that they could defend that number up one side and down the other, that they had really scrubbed it. So that does include all of the various events and things, but that is still, we're close to 1 million people, and we really don't have anything to go see there yet.
Dreamville.
Excuse me? We'll have to have a talk, Beverly.
We have a lot to see there. We don't have anything that is new beyond what was there. So we have been creating a destination. But there are fabulous trees and park and places to walk, and there is
It's a great demonstration of the draw of what we have now. And when we add all these other things, there will be more. But we should never forget that we had 1 million people come to see what many consider bare bones.
Yeah.
And I'll challenge that anytime, too.
Very good. I stand corrected. But the other thing that was discussed was program cost recovery. Dick's Park, the Conservancy has been covering the cost of the yoga classes and the children's art classes and the various programs that are very similar to what we offer in our community centers. And I shared my opinion that it was time as a Raleigh park that Dick's Park be on the same footing as far as offering a program that people paid the same way that they do at other. And now we know that anybody can come because Debbie will take care of it. And so we won't be excluding anyone. But I think that as we integrate, and Dick's has always been acquired by the city and run by the city, but it does have need for capital resources from outside. And so that's where the Conservancies, in my opinion, that's where their resources should go. So I did share that opinion on your behalf. And then they are also looking at an RFP for the concessions that will operate There will be a part of the Play Plaza includes the House of Many Porches, which will have extensive food opportunities. And I think there had been some worry whether whether existing food service people, restaurateurs, et cetera, would be interested in providing that. And apparently the initial conversations have been very positive.
Yeah,
And
it would
the
be,
mag-
it'd be
yeah.
3 locations. The Conservancy is looking at the Flowers Cottage, I think.
Yeah.
I call it Magnolia as well. It's really underutilized right now. So food opportunity there, food opportunity in Play Plaza, as the chairwoman shared. And then they're restoring the 3 stone cottages in
Oh,
the
that's
front.
right.
One of them would have like a grab and go, like, so you wanted to get something as you enter the park. So it's an RFP for 3 locations.
Great. That's it.
I think also the Conservancy has taken a slow approach to determine the right kinds of revenue-producing activities. And it'll be a lasting thing as that comes on board. And those decisions can get complicated. There are a lot of feelings involved about how to do that. But eventually, the park is going to have to start paying some of its own bills. And we're kind of on a rollover to that point. One other thing I recall was they mentioned that the 3 stone houses are getting close.
Yes,
to that.
January.
Yes, January. Chairwoman.
Okay, and those things will be used, I think, for some office space and also some difficult decisions on what buildings to keep and how to afford that. Because, what is it, in 2 years or a year, there's going to be like a $10 million bill to maintain those facilities.
Absolutely, and Kate gave a pretty extensive
Yeah, I
presentation
think we got that
last month.
at our board meeting.
And I just got from Kate, she must be works all the time. So the state on Tuesday requested and approved an 18-month extension to stay on the campus because their construction is a little bit behind on Blue Ridge Road. And we'll amend our lease agreement to be, I think it's January of 2027.
Will that include any consolidation so that they're leaving some of the buildings earlier?
Yeah, great question. So we have had active conversations about, as the various boards and commissions and the council say, these are the ones that should remain. Is there this opportunity to move quicker on some? And they're open to that. So
I don't recall, but was that the meeting also where the flowers on the power facilities?
She brought that
were
at
brought
our,
up?
it was at the last PRGA.
Okay, I don't recall.
It's been in the paper too, and our Doug
Yeah, they did.
Johnston was
Yes.
say Doug
the
was
generator
quoted.
of
Yes.
that idea.
Yes.
I have one question. I know with Parks and Recs, it's, it's funding is always a matter. But if the cost recovery for the department, do you all have a number for that where you are?
Sure. So it varies. It depends on if you include like park grounds or park maintenance.
Okay.
But our rough estimate, I'm looking at our budget person back here for cost recovery. I think we generate approximately $10 to $12 million a year in revenue, and then our overall budget's about 60.
Okay.
See, that's a figure that I've been asked about when having to pay a little bit for activities is always a tough thing.
It is.
But the overall operation is expensive.
Yes.
And that money is important. And if it wasn't important, you wouldn't be charging it.
Yeah, I'd also remind the board, that includes the Office of Raleigh Arts and Historic Sites. In some major cities, they're not a part of the park system. You heard from the cemeteries, they might be in a public works department. The consultants we have working on it right now, Barry Dunn, they're like the national best, and they're like, you're well within that wheelhouse of a major city, and your cost recovery aligns with those cities, so.
That's good. Good question.
Yes, great question.
Yeah. All right. Any other topics from board members that anybody wants to bring up? go to Holiday Express, have fun at that, go volunteer. And our next meeting is not here on December 14th, I believe, and it is at the Gregory Poole Chapel on Dix Park. So, and we will start at the same time, 6 o'clock. And there might be an element of sociability. Yeah, but we'll do the meeting.
Yeah,
but-
the newer board members, it's a very abbreviated meeting.
Yeah.
If there's anything that the board wants to share, but it's usually a half hour at most. And then we have our holiday celebration with other board members. Yep.
Yeah, with all the other associated boards. Something to look forward to. All right, well, with that, I think this meeting is adjourned.